I knew nothing as a collector. A year ago, I wouldn't be thinking this way. Here's the interesting part. Will they want to be talking to those comic shops about comics? Maybe. Will they want to be talking to those comic shops about selling records, Funko Pops, figures? Yes. One thing that is very notable is the disconnect between the end buyer and the people running DC and Marvel. Anybody who said, what about Mary Jane as Venom? Bro, you're 10 years too late, man. So it's hard to be happy about comics, but there is certain things going on in comics that I think are very exciting. I think that
Brian McClay back again from Beyond Wednesdays. What's going on, brother? It's good to see you again.
Chilling, brother. Back from the con. Feels good to be home, but man, it kicked my ass. I'm getting old.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I mean, I don't know. The cons these days are they're definitely like a lot of work, especially if you're in the content world, you know, or you got variants, which you kind of had a variant at this con. We'll get into that for a second, but I want to, get you back on the show and talk to you about a bunch of stuff. I mean, obviously we just came back from WonderCon and you were there and kind of going around. We got a chance to like hang out and kick it a little bit, but what was your thought of the show? Was this the first time you went to WonderCon specifically?
First time, bro. First time at WonderCon, and it was good, dude. It was good. It was really I like the cons aren't always the main thing for me. The main thing for me is hanging out with people and shooting the shit. So I like the fact that the con is in the middle of two hotels, and the two hotels have those dope hotel bars, and you could just finish the night at those hotels and just walk back and forth a couple times, throughout the night, and then your night's done. Go upstairs to your room, and it's easy. You don't have to Uber around or walk, 20 miles around the gas lamp, to go from bar to bar. So it's nice.
Yeah, that is kind of one of the nice things about WonderCon. Like, maybe it gets a bad rap from people, like, because it's the same organization as San Diego Comic-Con, and it's clearly like not quite on the level of San Diego, like especially like the when you get the gas lamp factor there. But when you mention it, yeah, it is pretty cool that the two bars are there, and so there's like a pretty decent social aspect to it, which for sure at this point with cons for me, I mean, like that's really what it's all about. Like, I don't know if you ended up like buying anything at the show or you were like chasing any of the exclusives or variants and stuff, but I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about this when we were there, but I don't know. I just find it painstaking at this point to buy comics at Comic Cons. Do you feel the same way?
So totally, dude. Okay, and this is very interesting because what is the first thing that everybody asks you? They either ask you, what were the prices like, or did you buy anything? I have a very hard time looking for comics at a con. You know what I mean? It's just hard for me to do. So when it happens, I'm not looking at walls. I'll look at walls to see if there's anything like really crazy that I'm looking for, but I'm not looking. The stuff that I'm not looking for is not super expensive, because I already know it's going to be 1.5 to 2 times the asking price, like realistically. And even though it says, "Oh, beats eBay price," bullshit. I don't believe that for a second. At least that's my thought process going in. There might be some of you retailers out there that are doing eBay live prices or eBay prices, but I'm just not going to believe it. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. So I'm looking in like weird, funny humor books, that's my style of stuff, looking for rare things that I want, but mostly I'm not there to buy. I'm just not, unless there's like every once in a while you'll find a cool table there was one table this year that was like I don't know if it looked like they had just bought a huge collection and they put everything out for $10, and it was all good stuff. It wasn't bad stuff. It was like, you could find I think I pulled up next, Big Leg was standing there, and I pull up next to him. I see him standing there. I walk up next to him, hey, what's going on? And he's like, dude, look at this stuff. So I'm going through stuff he's already picked, right? And I'm still finding crazy stuff. Turner's, J. Scott Campbell's. I think I found like 5 of those Xena Warrior Princess books where she's in the hot tub with the other girl, which is like an innuendo book, right? Those are the type of booths that I'm looking for. Those weird ones that have decent prices, that have heat. Yeah, maybe everything isn't 9.8, but you're still, you know, having a chance of 1 out of 3 maybe being a 9.8, and still the rest being great things that I can put in a live sale, because that's what I'm looking for these days. My
Yeah.
PC is so, uh, it's not small, but like niche, right? I
Yeah.
look for weed books and alien books and skull books, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's I'm not gonna find that type of stuff. So I'm looking for that type of booth. And there's always one or two. And but I didn't really, buying wasn't my thing. It was walking around, talking to people, introducing myself to artists or creators I've never met. Talking to a lot of viewers, which was cool. That was really cool.
Mhm.
Shout out to all those guys. I mean, you know, that's kind of how it is. Hell, we were standing there at one point, and I think like 3 people walked up to us, you know?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
fun,
It's
dude.
it.
It's good.
Yeah, the social aspect's what it's all about. It's funny, it's like, I used to really enjoy buying at cons and I don't know, maybe this is just like my own like kind of personal experience. Like now I have such like a close relationship with all the dealers or they know about my YouTube channel and all this. So there's a little bit of this kind of I don't know, maybe not awkward. Awkward's not the right word, but like I can't like quite, negotiate with them in the same sort of way. I mean, I probably can, but there's just like that tension. And knowing what I know, where it's like you said, sometimes like the new collections will be pulled out there, but like there's people who are already digging through all the stuff and they get all like the good, deals before the show even opens. Like, the retailers are already buying up stuff. So it's just kind of hard. And I think I may mention this to you where I think I'm so conditioned now to online buying where you sort of have this like this customer service. Like if you tune
Mhm.
into like a live stream or an Instagram sale or whatever, like they're showing you the book, they're like, hey, oh, there's a little color break right here in the corner. And so I think it's like a 9.2. And also like, I just want to show you the page, they're just like really going into detail about everything. Whereas like when I'm at the show, it's like I see a book on a wall. It's like maybe I want to buy it, but it's like one, a lot of times the prices are not on it, or maybe they don't have a grade on it. So I have to be like, oh, can I see that? And then they get it, and then I have to look, and it's like now we're already like 2 steps into it. And then if I wanted to inspect it, I have to open it. I have to do the work.
Yeah,
I have to look.
yeah,
And yeah, I don't know. We're just in the we're in the tech generation now where it's like with the DoorDash mentality where it's like I'm too lazy to look. I just want to be served. And
yeah,
so that's just been my experience over the last couple of years with buying from comic booths. So I don't know. I don't have the same hunger when I'm at the show, and I'd rather just spend the time hanging out with people and talking to like
yes,
people who watch the YouTube and stuff. So yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. Hopefully I can get back to buying at shows because I do think you can get the good deals. It just takes a little more effort.
yeah. I, the thing that I did spend my money on is I did buy those McFarlane variants, you know,
Oh yeah,
but in all reality, I bought them to flip. I thought to myself, "Okay," I told myself I was gonna quit buying at cons, like, altogether. Like, variants, I would still pick, like, if I found, you know, something cool that fits my niche collecting, I'll pick up that stuff, but I'm not gonna buy stuff to flip anymore. I told myself that after San Diego. I'm like, it's just too much for me, you know what I mean? So, this time around, they announced the McFarlane variants, or the Brett Booth McFarlane variants, or Spawn variants. I should call them what they really are. They're Brett Booth Spawn variants for Wondercon. And they announced them right a couple days, I think, before the con. So there's still a little bit of heat on them, and it'll give me time, hopefully, to get home, get them, because I couldn't bring my stuff back because I'm flying a shitty airline that will charge me extra for extra weight or something, and so I just bought a small little suitcase. So hopefully they'll get shipped to me back in time, and I'll be able to flip them on my live sale that I do once a week. You know what I mean? And that'll pay. But here's the thing, that will pay for my hotel. You know what I mean?
right,
And
right,
that's how to play the variant game. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're there to buy them because you enjoy them and you want to collect them, and Brett Booth is one of your favorite or artists, or you have a Spawn run that you've been going through since the '90s, cool as hell. No problem with that. But to me, I'm gonna flip them. I'm gonna use them to pay for my hotel room. hopefully, hopefully. I'll be honest though, most of the time, like, you don't get on it fast enough, and sometimes you can't even sell these variants within
Yeah.
2 weeks after getting them. So
Yeah. Do you think that is just sort of like we're finding that rebalancing from all the craziness that we had with variants in the past couple years? Do you think that element will come back into collecting, or do you think that the party's over in this like con exclusive variant game?
yeah, I think the party's over until they make them con exclusive variants again. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
at least the thing about those McFarlane variants is you can only get them at WonderCon. If you go to WonderCon and it's one set per, or you have to go stand back in line, which the line is long as fuck. It is long. You're standing in line for an hour to get another set. And that to me is a true con variant. Hell, back in the day, I remember going to cons and you would get a bag at that con. And when that bag, it was handed to you, it had con variants in it. And that was what a con variant was. And nowadays, con variants, sometimes you can't even get at the con. You have to go on the person's live stream, the weekend of the con. They're not even in LA, but they call them con variants. And don't get me wrong, get your money. That's the whole thing. But the problem is, it's pissing. It's not a good business to have in the collectibles business. It's just not.
Well,
It's not a
well,
good
it kind
mindset.
of feels yeah, well, it kind of feels like a lot of retailers use cons as like lightning rods to come out with a new variant. So, like you said, they don't even need to be at the con. It's just sort of like, oh, we know that this moment in time, there's going to be people interested in whatever the new exclusives are because it's San Diego, because it's New York. And
Mm.
so I'm just going to use that momentum to sell my own variant, whether I'm there or not. And so I don't know if yeah, we're to your point about like, yeah, if they bring it back to the con, this doesn't seem like the incentives are there to ever get back to that idealized version of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But do you think
It's
the
interesting.
people that are at do you think the people that are in the line, when you describe like, oh, like there's a big line for Tom Farm, like how many of those people are buying it for real for themselves? And how many people are have their own whatnot streams or are intending to flip it?
The majority of them are intending to flip it. I
Yeah,
think that, but I don't think it's a ton. I don't think it's like 70-30 or, you know, I think it's closer to 60-40 probably. You know what I mean?
right.
I think that the majority of them are there to maybe keep one of the McFarlane signed books and flip the rest, you know, which is totally cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. There needs to be a secondary market in comics. It's it's the thing that to me that's keeping comics alive right now, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are buying these comics that are flipping them and using that to buy their grails. It's been that way for 10 years now, right? It's brought us the variant age, which helped save comics. Some people would say, it helped put a boost in comics during the pandemic, the collecting thing. What would have happened to comics if people weren't still going crazy for them out of the pandemic? It's 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 a good part of the hobby, and to me, it keeps the hobby healthy.
Yeah.
Um,
It's definitely an important piece for the industry in a lot of different facets, and, you should know because, you've been doing this, industry of comic show for almost, what now? Like, over a year, right? You've been kinda keeping
yeah,
it pretty consistent now, and I gotta
this
say,
is
Jesse, and Dennis, shout out to your co-hosts. You guys have been absolutely killing it, bringing on great guests, having great conversations. And I want to ask you definitely about like some of the things and big takeaways that you've learned because you get to have like sort of the front row seat into the whole experience. But I want to focus in first on the other week when you had was it the CEO from Alliance Entertainment?
yeah, yeah. No, he's I don't know if you call him CEO, like maybe chairman, something like that. There's
So,
two guys
well,
that are running the AET, and he's one of them.
Right. So one of the sweet seat people from Alliance Entertainment, and to recap, Alliance Entertainment is the company that at least we think is going to be buying out Diamond. And you happened to get him on the live stream that same day when the news broke. I'm curious if you could tell me and the people watching, just like what ended up happening after your live stream. If you can kind of explain a little bit of the story
Yeah.
and maybe what you learned from talking to him.
Yeah. So, that morning, my phone my phone was off the hook, right? Because, of the industry show, I'm usually on get calls from, Dennis or Jesse or another retailer that we talk to, or, people in the industry will call 'em, or I'll call them. But that morning I was getting a lot of calls, because we've been covering the diamond stuff like crazy. It's at first when we said we were trying gonna only cover it for like a couple weeks. We were like, oh, this is stupid. This is such a big story. You kind of have to continue going with it. So it's been pretty nonstop. So that morning when it got announced, got a bunch of calls, and Dennis hit me up and he said, hey man, let's let's get this guy on the show. And so I was like, hell yeah, man. So he got him on the show. Really nice guy, Bruce Ogilvy, good dude. Seemed like he was just, yeah, just jump right on. I think he had been watching, maybe the industry shows, kind of just checking them out because he's been obviously scouring the web for diamond stuff. Maybe, I don't know. And he jumped on and he was very open. We'll say, he was very. He was talking a lot about what happened, and it was good interview. The next morning, phone blows up again, and this time, maybe he might have said a little too much. Maybe he said it too early. Maybe he shouldn't have said anything, and his lawyers were like, "Hey, you should have, maybe we should wait until the sale happens." So he respectfully asked that we, wait till the sale happens and then put it back up. But I had already put it up. So the problem is like, what's the best way to handle it? Do I just take the whole thing down or just edit his stuff out? So I just edited his stuff out, and he gave us the A-OK that when the deal is finalized, go ahead and put it back up. Good dude, been in contact with him a couple of times since, this whole thing went down, and he's super cool, man. At least for the few interactions I've had with him, but he's
Yeah.
very respectful about it. He understood. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry, but what, I don't want to be the reason a $50 million deal doesn't go through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, wouldn't
Like,
that be something?
yeah,
Imagine the industry show being the reason that the industry is not saved,
yeah,
because the diamond deal collapses.
yeah,
It's so funny. I mean, it's cool how candid he was, and was willing to come on. But yeah, it kind of does make sense. I mean, when you describe it, it's like, yeah, this deal's not technically done. He was kind of getting into some details. I'm curious, like, what your general takeaways were from him in terms of the business and how he sort of sees comics. Like, did you get any thoughts or insights when you were listening to him?
yes. I think that. So here's what I think. I think that he comes from a totally different world. He's a music guy, uh, record shop owner in the 80s, I believe, in California, I think. You know, smart guy when it comes to running a record business. Oh, smart guy when it comes to dealing with that part of the industry, right? They're a music distribution company that sends music to Walmarts and big box stores, and I'm sure distributes online sales and that type of stuff. They got into the collectible industry, I believe, through things like Funko Pops and Legos and action figures, because that's, think about it. That's what some of those record stores became. Even back then, back in the, late 90s, early 2000s, Warehouse was putting in comics and toys, action figures in these big record stores. So I'm sure that kind of came into his business the same way, where they were just buying assets of other businesses that were dying. I believe they had something to do with the warehouse deal where warehouse went bankrupt, and I believe they may have been in some way of buying, the remnants of the warehouse
Mm.
places, stores. So that's where he comes from. When it comes to comics, I think it's all new to him, and that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. I don't know yet. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a great thing. I think, if we had our choice, he would love comics. He knows comics. He's always wanted to be in comics. That's just not the case. He's a businessman, and to him at this point, and the reason for him buying this, it's about making money. So
Yeah. It's interesting. I did get to watch it live at the time, so I'm, somewhat remember some of the things that he said. But to your point about him being a businessman, my takeaway from listening to him was that, he's going to give it his best effort. He seems to be like somewhat of a fan, or at least appreciates comics to some degree. But my sense is that when he really starts to dive in to the business and really starts to look at the numbers and really starts to look at like some of the processes, he's just going to be like, well, that's stupid. This doesn't make sense. And,
totally,
hatch it
totally,
away. And,
yes,
and in there could be a lot of good things that come of it. But, as some of the people I think in the chat were, sort of having a conversation about this, like, there is concern about, say, like the smaller publisher or like some of the indie presses, and maybe some of the, just the smaller comic book sales that would occur out there. There's concern for them, and I think they probably should be concerned. I
yeah,
don't necessarily think that Alliance Entertainment is, the Calvary for the indie comic that only moves like 1,000 books, for their titles. So I don't know. Was that sort of the sense that you got with them?
100%. Yeah, he's. It kind of came up in the interview. I asked him. I said, "What about these small press indie creators, indie publishers that Diamond was their savior? It was the thing to get them into comic book stores." And his answer was more or less like, "Hey, if it's not like a $20 sale to us, it's really not worth it."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if it's got to make us it, at the end of the deal where it's already gone through where it's been stored and packaged and shipped, it's got to make them at least 95 cents to even be thought about. You know, um, and he also said, like, and in honesty, like, unless it's a $20 sale, it's not really worth it to them. Now I could be
Yeah.
mistaking that. You guys will be able to go, see it soon. It'll be up, but hopefully by the time this interview is out, tomorrow, the 2nd of April is when the sale is supposed to finalize. So
Mhm.
we'll see.
Yeah. Do you think that applies also to some of the individual, like, comic book stores? Like, they're do you think they're gonna spend time and wanna have accounts with smaller, eclectic comic shops? Or are they more focused on, like, "Look, man, we just look, we're more interested in Walmart and Target and, you know, big box
Well,
stores like
here's
this."
here's the interesting part. Will they want to be talking to those comic shops about comics? Maybe. Will they wanna be talking to those comic shops about selling records and
Oh, yeah.
Legos and Funko Pops and figures?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Well,
why they bought this.
I did say that when I did my little recap. I kind of threw out the question, like, do you think that they're interested in the comic business, or do you think they're interested in the accounts? Because
That's
what do they actually want here? What do they actually value? Like
that's what they're
the
interested in. By the
publishing?
way, you guys,
Yeah.
by the way, here's the funny thing about all this. You might go see interviews with me and Swag when we first met each other. I might not seem thinking this way. I gotta shout out my guys, Jesse and Dennis, because a year ago, I wouldn't be thinking this way. My lenses are rose colored a year ago. After
Mm,
hanging with two guys whose lenses are very clear, their lenses, matter of fact, their lenses are non-existent. Okay, so after hanging with guys whose lenses are non-existent, my lenses are getting a little bit clearer. You know what I mean? So you know, shout out to them for making me think this in a different way, because that's what they're looking for. This company's looking for. They're looking for those accounts. Um, some of the things might be sprinkles on top, right? The grading company might be a sprinkle on top. They deal with collectibles. Maybe they can work out something where they mass produce some graded collectible. Who knows, right? And they have a perfect inroad into Walmart, into these 7,000 retailer stores, all the other stores that, you know, Ollie's and you know, whatever else, Big Lots, dollar stores, places like that. You know, what are they going to do with Free Comic Book Day? That's also the very interesting thing. They could do
Yeah.
something with that that's totally different. You know, they deal in the world of Record Store Day, which makes money for them. You know,
Yeah.
what are they going to do with Free Comic Book Day? You know, there is ways to make money off of Free Comic Book Day. It's just how you're going to have to change it up. You're going to have to do more with it. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting you said that, you know, they're helping you kind of see things through a different lens, your co-hosts. I'm curious, like just more in a broad sense of you doing like the industry show and whether it be on retail or maybe even like creative or collecting, um, what have been kind of your biggest kind of learned things or takeaways from doing the show, or did anything notable or stand out to you in some of the guests that you've spoken to?
Um, I think that one thing that is very notable is and I think we've probably talked about this before because me and you talk about this a lot. Is the disconnect between the end
Mhm.
buyer and the people running, you know, publishing, you know, DC and Marvel, some of the bigger retailers, the disconnect between, you know, how they do things and why they do things. That's a big thing for me. Um, Also, I knew nothing as a collector. I thought I knew everything on how this world works. I knew nothing. Um, and that was a big thing, you know, like, you know, when you're younger and you're really into something, you have a little bravado about you like, I know what I'm talking about here. It's like, no, no, you don't. You don't know anything.
Mhm.
There's such a disconnect. There's like they just throw. I think there's some guys out there that like I'll tell you what. After WonderCon this week, and I'm gonna really get into it on my channel to talk about this. Is seeing Todd McFarlane and how he navigates the comic world now, and listening to him at the panels. I went to two panels he was holding, and um, it was very eye-opening, and, like, he is a very positive force for comics, man. He is a
Sure.
very positive force, and that's a good thing. That really, you know, made me feel good about comics. You know, there are some things that made me feel kinda iffy, but there are things that make me feel good. Todd McFarlane's one of them. Rob Liefeld's one of them. Jim Lee is one of them. All 3 of them were at the con, okay? Um, and that's a big deal to me. Those guys and they're taught telling their stories. They're talking about the history. That's a big deal to me. That's something that needs to happen more in our industry because that grabs the community and it makes the community stronger. The community loves stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And especially now where our nostalgia, me, you, the people who are 10 years older than me, that, you know, those are the people that their nostalgia is Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, McFarlane, J. Scott Campbell, Stephen Platt, you know, Joe Benitez, you know, Marat Michaels, all the guys who were in comics and were the young rock stars when we were going to the comic book store for the first time. That's our nostalgia, and to see them be a part of it and to see them at the con, I saw so many of those guys at the con. That was a huge deal, man. Big deal.
Yeah.
So, for those guys out there, if they're watching this, like, that is important. Keep doing that. That's such an important thing. And then for the guys who are younger than them, get ready to start doing that because there's gonna be the kids or the people younger than me that you are their rock stars. You know, I mean, so that's
Yeah.
that's the important thing. That's very a thing that I've learned, you know, if through seeing the disconnect in the industry, I've learned that the important thing are what causes that nostalgia to happen, and to farm the hell out of that, you know?
Yeah. But to that same point, like, don't you think it's kind of like Tom McFarlane and Jim Lee and stuff, and guys like that are still the rock stars of the
Mm,
comic industry. You know, it's not like you look at I don't know who would the next generation of guys be, like the Jason Aarons and things like that, where it's like they're not quite at the same level as those
yeah.
guys. And does that have to
Dude,
do
yep.
with the fact that the demographic is like just not as big for the people that grew up on their work compared to like us who
I
grew up
think,
on Tom
yeah,
McFarlane's work?
100%,
I think
100%.
that that's definitely the case, but I do think it's interesting going back to the disconnect, because I totally agree with you how much disconnect there is. And I think you undersell a little bit where it's like you don't know anything, but like maybe what you know as a collector is literally the most important thing, because in a lot of ways it's like that's who the end customer is. And these companies like could learn a lot from learning more about those people. Although my suspicion has always been that I don't think the big two really view comics as their business anymore. Even though they are like comic publishers, I think that they're just thinking of it as like a place to kind of keep their IP warm and alive, and they just kind of keep it going out. I think they've surrendered to the idea that comics as an industry could be as big as movies or video games or whatever. And maybe that is true, but I think that that's such like a loser mentality, like in my
Yeah,
opinion. Like I
yeah,
I know that it's an uphill battle to make comics as an entertainment industry as big as movies, but I feel like if you don't think that you can do that, I don't think you should be running these companies. And so I wish that they did spend more time understanding like the culture and the boots on the ground, so to speak. And yeah, I think the people that run these companies don't really understand a lot of the effects of the Todd McFarlanes and the Rob Liefelds have. Ironically, they should, because Jim Lee is the head of DC, but I'm not always convinced that he quite can see the forest through the trees, with some of the stuff that he's doing. But I could be
yeah.
wrong on that. Like, that's just my, view from afar. But yeah, it does seem interesting, when you do the industry show, like the 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 disconnect of the publisher and collector and the artist is and the creators is so far. And I don't know why that is. And maybe it's in comics like too, like maybe this is not unique, because the disconnect in the people who collect vintage comics to the people who like to buy like the modern variants to the people who collect the do you poo stuff to the random vendor who has like a massive booth at WonderCon. You're like, who are these people? I've never even
Yeah,
heard of these people, but they have like
yeah,
this clearly this 10,000 uh, whatever like cubic square feet of a booth, and it's like they're huge, but they have their own
yeah.
audience, and I've never heard of them. And here I am with a comic book YouTube channel. But like, there is a lot of like silo and disconnectness in comic books, and maybe that's just what it is.
You brought up the fact that there's this disconnect and you just run a YouTube channel. Well, maybe you're setting yourself a little short right now, because there are what surprised me is some of the old school dealers who are now watching your channel and who are keeping tabs on the younger generation who may have never maybe they jumped on YouTube to watch your channel. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah,
that's another interesting part where there's some of these guys who are starting to realize, okay, maybe I need to keep an eye over there, because we're the people that they could be selling to, that they are going to be selling to, that they are selling to. So that's another interesting thing, doing the industry show, especially working with two very progressive store owners. And by progressive, I mean thinking outside the box on how to sell and make money, i- running a collectible store, because that's
right.
what they're doing. Jesse went from being this longtime LCS guy that had a massive brick and mortar shop for many years, grew up selling comics in shops, took a step away, went and worked a long time of corporate in the corporate world, brought that back to create his own, comic book store, and did that for a long time, who is now pivoted to selling comics live stream, right? That's a major progressive move to go from a brick and mortar store to a guy that's like, okay, I'm gonna also just start selling live stream. And don't get me wrong, I'm the guy's looking to create more stores and stuff still, but that's a major deal. And then you have Dennis at Wonderworld, who longtime brick and mortar store owner that went from being I'm gonna go do stuff in malls and create just a collectibles store, less comics, more collectibles, right? More nostalgia, more this and that. And he's killing it. Two very progressive guys, and both guys who dropped off a Diamond, while Diamond was killing it. They dropped off a Diamond and said, we're not gonna, do new comics that way. We're not gonna sell new comics that way through Diamond anymore.
Right.
So that's another very interesting thing doing that industry show has showed me that there are some very progressive guys out there, but they're few and far between, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if, with all due respect to everyone in comics, I don't know if comics is always the most like forward thinking of fields
Yeah,
that kind of yield to those types of people. But yeah,
yeah,
it's good to see people trying new ideas and trying new things. And going back to Alliance, hopefully they do it and it's successful. I'm curious, like with some of the other people you've had on the show recently, you had Rich Johnson from Bleeding Cool, you
yeah. That
had
was
Eric
cool.
July. You had
That was cool.
some other interesting guests, like you had John Bolerjack, the filmmaker for the Stan Lee documentary. I guess that wasn't technically on your industry show, but it was on one of your other streams. I'm
Yeah,
curious, like if any of those names bring up any thoughts to you, or you have any
yeah.
interesting
John definitely does.
post games for those.
John definitely does.
Yeah.
The con I went to, I ran into 5 people that were like, just told me what a good dude he is. Like, "Oh, this
Mm,
he's my friend, he's a really good guy. I'm doing I wanna tell you that, I want you to know that." Basically, a lot of people that I respect their opinion that I didn't know were friends with him said that to me, so that was very interesting. But I feel bad for that guy. I feel like that guy's in a lose-lose situation. Um, and he still wants to be part of this industry. He is part of this industry, and he is dealing with a subject that's so hard to deal with to begin with, and then to be in the situation he's in, he's just not going to win, and it sucks because there is a lot of people in the industry that have said more people that I've met have said good things about him than I've heard people say bad things about him by a vast margin. And I'm not talking about like just 5 guys. At least 20 people, 20 plus people have talked to me and said that they know John. He's always been stand up to him, this and that. But on the other hand, a lot of people I've talked to have also said, there was a lot of people that took advantage of Stan that was around him. And that sucks. It really
yeah.
sucks. And so people are also saying like if there was that many people, was he taking advantage of them and this and that? Do I think John was taking advantage of them? From what I know, no, I don't. I think John was probably like a guy that was young and wanted to work in comics, and he got very lucky and found this way to be for better words, I'm thinking like a gopher, and I'm not using that to shame him, but like a young kid that's just gonna drive from place to place, walk stand from place to place. We can, and then we can get him to film stuff for us, and he became friends with Stan Lee, and he's getting paid by the earnings of all the shenanigans, by the fuckery, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I can't blame him for, like, if I was, 20 years old and that opportunity afforded me and, maybe after doing it for a year or so, you realize what's going on, what would you do? you know? And I think from what he said he's done, where he said, there was a bunch of us that I talked to at the time that felt bad and wanted to kind of stand up against it. And I could see these two factions forming, this and that. The other big problem is his optics are so bad, bro. They're so bad.
Yeah.
The Netflix optics, the way and it was set up, the way it was run, it just felt not professional when it needed to be professional. It needed to be looked over by other professionals, and maybe he did that and maybe he just didn't pick the right ones. I don't know. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
I definitely have some thoughts on it. I mean, again, like, yeah, I do feel bad for him because I know what it's like to have the mob go after you for a time, and it's definitely not fun, and it makes you wanna hide, and it makes you defensive, and that's somebody that I see. Like, whenever I see him talk about anything or any of the interviews I've watched him on, he is very overly defensive, which is a problem because this is a time when he needs to be, like, arms open, heart open, because he's dealing with such a sensitive subject. Um, and because he wants to be the filmmaker to tell the story, it's got to come from that place,
Yeah.
and it's going to be hard, like you said, from an optic standpoint, to present that side of you uh, with the backlash that he's getting for it. Um, and yeah, and I don't fault him for, a lot of people like were criticizing him for like, oh, like, well, why didn't you go to the cops and blah 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 ahead of time, or you were just sitting back, and he has his own reasons for it. But like that aside, like what, like let's not all pretend like that if it was you, if you were in that situation, that you would have had like the will or the, the clear vision to be able to do something about it. Like it's like that's such like armchair quarterbacking, and like these situations are so much more complicated than they seem to be, especially when you're in it. I mean, there's a reason why people like, it's like people get into relationships, and when it's you in that seat, like you can't objectively
Yeah.
see what's going on. So it's
Totally.
much harder. It's like
Yeah.
it's easier for us to look at afar and say like, oh, well, he should have done this. And so I feel bad for him on that front. But yeah, again, coming out with the Kickstarter the way he did, I think it's just was super bad, like optics. Like it's so unprofessional, and his positioning even now today, where it's like he's trying to raise this money to finish the film, but like the Kickstarter rewards are for like a comic book he's selling. So there's a complete
That was
disconnect
the bad
there.
part. That right
Yeah,
there, you hit it on the head. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about the comic book part, the variant, retailer
totally.
variant. That was the part that really surprised me.
Yeah, and I've heard him talk about like why he thought it was a good idea, but the problem is when you go into the crowdfund space, like it should be a lot more clear. Like, hey, this is the thing you want to accomplish, and with your support, I'm going to accomplish it, and I'm going to deliver that for you, whether it's a comic or a movie or whatever. So, like, the reward should just be like, hey, here's a link to a digital screener. Like that should just be the clear reward, not this other like merchandise stuff. It's just
Yeah,
too strange. So
too
I
much.
think that's yeah, that's the problem with it. And even too, like, for me, like I know a lot about like the film side of it too, where he wants to like finish the film, but then he wants to still get it on streaming and Netflix and like get the whole glory of like
Yeah,
having a big release out of it. And it's like it's not the movie for it's not the time for that. Like
no,
what he needs to do is it's like, hey, people want to back you, they're going to give you money, go finish your film. And then you have your finished film, and then you
stop
take it to
that.
the film festivals. You go to like South by Southwest, you go to
Totally.
Cannes, you go to Sundance, wherever you take it, and then the distribution will come from that. That's the real, true, honest way to do it. Not this like I want to make this movie and then sell it to Netflix. Like that's never going to go over well. So I
Okay,
think
so
that he had some big missteps on that side
let
of it,
me
but
ask you
I
this.
believe that he's a good guy.
It Where he is now, how does he fix this? Is there a way for him to fix this? Should he just take it down and make the film himself and do what you're saying? Because I think he knows it's not gonna fund, you know?
It's definitely not going to fund. I mean, what he should have been doing right away is he should have been responding to every single comment on his Kickstarter and like alleviating, because I don't know if you know this, but like on his Kickstarter page, all the comments were like, I had big concerns and this is red flags
Yeah.
and da 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 da. And if it's not that, he should have been like responding to every single one. Hey, I hear your concern, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, and provide answers. He was on your show. He was on Nerdrotic. He was on other shows. In the updates page for Kickstarter, he should have shared all those interviews. Hey guys, I was on Brian McClay's show Beyond Wednesdays. We got into some answers. Some of you guys may have questions. Check out the interview. Here are the times. Like he should have been completely managing, like
Yeah.
full transparency. Like, hey, here's the answers for the questions you guys have. But he didn't do that. I don't know what it was. Like maybe he hid or whatever, or didn't realize the importance of
I
addressing
don't
his
think he was
backers.
looking at it from that standpoint. I think his standpoint was, I think he's tired. I think he's been fighting a lawsuit for 4 years, and he's like,
Yes.
I just need to get this thing out there. And I think part of him thought, like, for whatever reason, he thought this was gonna work. And again, it's his what the fuck moment, right? Like we were talking about,
Yeah. Yeah.
being content creators, that you have that what the fuck moment where you realize you bit off more than you can chew, and you need to, plan things out better. That's his moment for that. So I think he'll get it made, and I think he'll get most of the funding he wants from, angel investors, or however you guys put it, like
Yeah.
people that are
Well, at
behind
this
the scenes.
Yeah, at this point, there's so many people that have knowledge of his movie. Like he should just finish it with, private investment. And
Yep.
then, like I said, like go the film festival route. That's what he needs to do. Like
Yeah.
I know people are like, just put it out on YouTube. It's like, okay, I can understand if you don't want to do that, but go the film festival route. Like go make it. It'll be great. Or if it really is like this amazing story, it'll be great. You can put it at South by Southwest, and then some company like Amazon or Netflix are going to see it there and they're going to buy it, and then that's how it's going to be distributed. Like that's what you have. He has to do at this point, and don't spend $300,000.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of production he's trying to do with it, and like I've heard him talk about, oh, but it costs this, it costs this. It's like it doesn't have to. Like
No, that's the
documentaries
thing.
get made,
Yeah.
people figure it out, and
Well,
that's kind of what you have to do.
how many of the comments were like, "Just put it on YouTube," just
Yeah.
put it on YouTube. So,
Yeah, you could do that. So I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting to see how that shakes out. I don't think that he's going to hit his goal. But hopefully, one day the movie gets made because I would be curious to watch it. But
yeah.
speaking of the the what the fuck moment for the content creator thing, I'm curious to hear about just content creation in general from you these days. Like, how are you feeling about it? Are you as energized as ever to talk comics on a weekly basis? Like, are you feeling the audience is still as passionate about comic books these days? Do they want to hear different things? Like, what's your take on kind of comic content land?
I think it's, oh, man. I think it's at a little bit of a lull on the comic side, you know what I mean? I think it's kinda hard to be as excited about collecting comics when secondary prices are so down, especially coming from the world I come from, which is that flipperverse,
Yeah,
secondary price game where you're
hot list
telling what
world.
books are, yeah, hot books, this and that. I think it's kinda tough. Um, the new, week Wednesday Warrior game is hampered. It's hamstrung big time, you know what I mean? And so I think it's a little tough to be about that. Back issue sales are down immensely. I mean, keys are, if somebody wants to just get like a holy shit moment, go look at Star Wars key sales in the fall of Star Wars key sales. It's horrendous. So it's hard to be happy about comics, but there is certain things going on in comics that I think are very exciting. I think that, the Todd McFarlane stuff I talked about this weekend, uh, Spawn 77 coming out with Mark is huge. I think Mark himself is a great thing in comics right now. Find the new artists in general. I love searching out great new artists and talking to them and finding out about them. Suspiria, Sveta, Flops Comics, you know, like these guys, these up and coming guys. There's guys who have never done comics that I'm finding where I'm like, I would love to see you do a comic book. So that to me, that's fun. And it's very easy to get these young new people into comics, you know, get them to do a variant cover. Still, I think that most of the retailers are learning that it's smarter to do these small print runs, 500 print runs or less, if at the most 1,000, and do multiples of those instead of doing a big, huge 3,000 print run. It's so much more healthy for the game to do this, the smaller print run stuff. So I think, you know, seeing that kind of be fostered and grown by the smart retailers out there is a good thing. But we're seeing the bigger retailers start to falter, and we're going to see. I truly think we're going to see more retailers that are just doing these variants constantly are going to start faltering. So the comic game is a little lull, but on the flip end of that, doing content, I've never been more excited about doing content. Um, there's something about the content game and the community building that has happened that has just made it so much fun. The content I make is hanging out with my good friends and shooting the shit about things we love. That is more fun than ever. The relationships that I'm building through this content is amazing. I'm building, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are just about getting the quick one up come up. You know what I mean? I just want to make money off of this, and you know, that one and done relation. That's the relationship right there. I'm so far past that I'm like, I want to find cool people that I can have long lasting relationships with, you know, that are like minded. You know, that's my game, and I am super excited in that regards. I mean, especially coming off of WonderCon, where I got to hang out with a lot of those people. You know, the Wednesday show with Clutch, Big Leg, Hood, Yee, Nate will come on there, Vinny, is absolutely amazing, and getting to hang out with those people on a regular, like in person. I, you know, I'm gonna call Red Hood after this show to just tell him, like, man, I wish you and Nate were there. You better come out to San Diego. Like, that's the thing, you know. San Diego's coming
Mhm.
up. I'm so excited to get ready for that so when it comes to the content creation, and you know, and the community that's being built and the fun that's being had, I've never been excited. The comic stuff, it's in a little bit of a lull. I'll be honest, it just is. Will
Yeah.
it come back? I think it will. I think there's really progressive. We talked about progressive store retailers. There's really progressive uh, industry, you know, publishers. Listen, what Dinesh is doing at Bad Idea is like he has his finger on the pulse of what we want. You know,
Yeah.
that New Planet Death being on FOC this week, and the way that they're doing it is so smart, and so that's very exciting. You know,
Yeah.
there are some of those publishers out there doing, you know, Image, Todd and Image, Skybound with Energon Universe, but
Yeah.
man,
We
DC
should
and
mention,
Marvel,
if people don't know, shout out to Dinesh with the Bad Idea. He had the Planet Death comic book, and I think they got 600,000 orders
yes,
for what is a Kickstarter comic book. And
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that 600,000 puts them in the highest indie ordered comic book of all time. So,
game changer,
I mean, what an
game,
amazing accomplishment.
yeah, yeah, big deal. And here's the funny thing: Dinesh has surrounded himself at Bad Idea with with people that think like us. You know,
Mm,
he's got people there that are so smart, and talking to them about, you know, what their plans are for uh, you know, distribution, and you know what they want to do on the retailer variant level, and it's very not surprising, not reaffirming, but like it's refreshing. That's the word, refreshing. It's
right.
very
Right.
refreshing, man. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's interesting with the content stuff for me. Um, I find myself always in waves, like up and down as far as like the grind of doing it. I don't. I love doing it. I love talking comics. I love connecting with people. Like you said, I think that that's the biggest reward that has come back my way is being able to like meet people in my life and connect with people over comic books and even connect with them past comic books. Like I've actually made legitimate friends, and that's been amazing doing my channel. And something that I wouldn't have expected to get when I started it.
That's
And so, but it's not like every day or every week that I make a video is like, oh, this is the greatest time of my life. Sometimes it becomes work, it becomes like discipline and you just have to like keep it going and just put stuff out. And so I find myself going in like waves where I feel enthused and I want to make stuff. And then I'm kind of like, all right, here we go. Let's talk about Jim Lee X-Men #1 selling in
yeah,
9.8 again, And so it can get dry at those times. But I definitely am always trying to think of like new ways to express the same idea or to try something new. And I'm happy that I'm in the current place I am with my channel. And I hope my audience gives me a little bit of a leash that if I do something weird or I decide to talk about like a Cheetos sale or even like make like a Pokemon video, like that
yeah,
they understand like comics is my first love, but like guys,
mm,
we got to talk about Pokemon for a second. And I
yeah,
think that the I think the people in comics and collecting like are more open-minded to this stuff nowadays. Maybe they didn't used to be, and it is a little bit of a fight. I think a lot of my audience still is more interested in like vintage stuff, but I like kind of talking about other collectible things and experimenting. I don't know. I think you've been able to paint a really good thing on the Beyond Wednesdays channel where you have clear lanes, you have a clear catalog of like Monday comics, we're going to talk about modern stuff. Saturday, you're going to talk about, maybe drama or community news. Tuesday's the industry show. So I think that's a really good way to kind of carve it out so that you have permission to go
yeah,
into these things to
yeah.
talk about them. But with my channel, it's always it's always from the same point of view, but it's a little bit of a crapshoot depending on what's going on
Well,
that week.
I
So I have
I
to kind of,
disagree, man. I think that, you are the exact same as me in the fact that we're very lucky that we are doing what we're doing where we're doing because we have a weird, um you said leash, but I think we have a weird thing where we're allowed to be off leash. You know what I mean? Whereas
mm,
like, because we're on YouTube, because we're not like, we don't come from a place where we started making money in the industry. We have a weird, off leash thing that we can get away with talking a lot of the things we can get away with. I'll be surprised. I think, I mean, I am surprised that a lot of people, a lot more people are coming on to YouTube, or that maybe they wouldn't in the past because they had that leash of the industry. And I think that what we're doing gives them the ability to kind of like be off leash. You know what I mean? So it
mm,
brings them to our channels. It brings them to want to reach out to us and say, hey, introduce themselves, because we give them the ability to be off leash because we are off leash. We're not
yeah,
beholden to the industry, and we're able to kind of maybe give them a chance to kind of, you know, have a little bit more fun instead of being totally professional all the time or having to stay in an exact lane. So I think that's super important. I think we've talked about this. YouTube is, or not just YouTube, content creation and social media and YouTube and these things are the future of this industry's information stream. It is. It was
yeah,
Wizard, now it's this.
yeah. I agree with you. I mean, I think I think if you asked me like 3 years ago and or if I were to pose this question to people out there and just sort of say like, where does the average person get their comic news? I don't know if it would have been that clear to me where they got it. I think I maybe would have said it still maybe comes from the comic store, but then that doesn't really make any sense because it's like if someone's not in a comic store, how are they finding about what the new comic is going to be? So it's like, or maybe that does make sense. Maybe that's one of the reasons why comic books have struggled. But I think now more than ever, like the clear answer to me is social media. It may not always be YouTube, but it's clearly like Instagram Reels or TikTok or whoever person you want to follow. That's the person you learn everything from. You know, or it could be a Reddit post, could be a forum, I don't know. But like, yeah, more than ever, this is where it's happening. And yeah, I think you do see it, you know, with a lot of the creators, like the creators as far as like comic creators, like artists and writers
Yeah.
and publishers really diving more into the space. And not that they didn't dive into it before, but I think now there's more of a clear mandate of like, oh, like we really need to be spending more time on this than we
Yes.
were. And so
Yes.
I think that, like you said, yeah, it's just going to continue to snowball as it already has.
The day of supporting the IP has moved to supporting the IP and the creator, right? It's not
100%.
about just supporting the IP anymore. Like I'm a Batman fan, so I'm gonna go see every Batman movie. It's, I'm a Scott Snyder fan, so I'm gonna check out what he's doing with Batman, Uh, and if Scott Snyder jumps on Haven for Heroes show and we see that Scott Snyder is this cool cat, you know, this super cool guy that I can kind of relate to. Now I'm really going to support Scott Snyder and I'm going to go check out his other stuff, not just his Batman stuff. So to me, that's the key, right? Having people realize that being genuine, showing that you're human, that attracts people. The the fakeness, the phoniness, that used to attract people for whatever reason when social media first started, I think. Now it's a detractant. People immediately catch that. I mean, not all people, but for the most part, I think people see that fakeness and a phoniness and it's an off-putting. When you find out somebody is fake or phony, it's off-putting, and they want that genuine person to support, and they'll do that now over
Yeah.
supporting just the IP. They'll
Yeah.
do it more.
And you know what? And that's more important than ever. And I get flack when I talk about AI coming into comics and AI art and all that stuff because, like, to the point you just said right there, that's going to be the thing that if you're a creator, an artist, a publisher, or whatever, that's going to be the thing that protects you from losing your job to AI. Is just having that direct support because people are invested in you. Like the art, you're not going to be able to compete with the output that AI is going to come within comics. AI eventually is going to do better work than artists can actually do. But what AI can't replace is the fandom and the appreciation that people have for you, the individual person. So more than ever, like as we go into that, or whether it's AI or not, but like that's the most important part right now
Yeah.
for people that are in this space is like, you gotta you gotta have the community who rides with you, and you gotta it's got to be reciprocal in terms of like
Yes.
giving back to them and being appreciated by them, and it's you guys.
Dude, that to me, again, I brought him up like 4 times in this episode, but McFarlane is a perfect example of, he made a comment that when he first went to a con, they all just totally, were dicks to him, except for one guy, George Perez, and he was just amazing to Todd. He talked to him, he gave him pointers, he looked at everything, and Todd told himself that if he ever makes it, because it was so off-putting with how those guys treated him, and it was felt so good how George treated him, he was gonna emulate George and treat everybody that he talks to, whether they're a fan or not, in comics or something that know him, he's gonna treat them like they're important, right? And but when he said that, I already knew that because so many people that have met Todd have said that exact same thing. oh, I went to go show him my comic book, and he grabbed it and said, "Oh man, this is awesome." Looked at a couple pages. "Oh, I really like this." Oh, I went and met him, and he asked me, "What am I doing?" When he met Leg this weekend, Leg was wearing his Big Leg shirt, and McFarlane's like, "Tell me about this. Tell me about what is on your shirt. What is that?" That's the important thing. And again, it cements that idea of how important it is to treat other people well, because if you do, there's a chance that they're going to rock with you and not only say, "Oh, I like that guy," or "He's a good guy," but they're going to spend money with you too, right?
Yeah.
So many people alienate so much of the group of people that are going to rock with them, that they're their own, they're self-sabotage. And the way McFarlane treats people, again, like I said, and like we're talking about, cements that idea how important it is to. It also cements the idea how important tribe is, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially we in comic books, like there's this tribal thing. Like we're a tribe, we're all kind of weird. We're all kind of nerds. We all kind of think outside the box a little bit different. And that's another important thing. We're a big tribe here in the world of comic books, and people want to be part of that tribe. That's an important thing.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, I know, comic fam gets thrown around like a meme, but,
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
true.
it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a meme.
No.
It can be real. It's maybe it's not everybody is in your
Mm.
comic fam, but, certainly some people are, and
Yeah,
you wanna find people. Um, but, yeah, I totally agree with Tom McFarlane. And, one of the hard things I think too is just being able to put yourself out there, and I think that that's especially when you're thinking about the profile of, like, the comic artist who is like, "I'm in my room and I just draw," and it's like the social awkwardness. I think that comes with, like, a lot of comic people, um, and it's hard to be willing to connect and put yourself out there, but it's so important, and, it's hard for me too, I definitely, um like doing this YouTube channel is like it's been a whole process, like putting yourself on camera and putting
yeah,
yourself out there and acting a fool and being willing to like let people see my personality, which
yes,
is not something that I was always very comfortable with. It took me a long time to
yeah.
like get to this point, and I still feel awkward about it sometimes. But I don't know. You just have to do it. You just have to do it, especially now more than ever. Otherwise, the robots are gonna take over.
Well, here's the crazy thing. This weekend, what was very evident to me is cosplay. And cosplay is a whole nother level of what you're talking about, man.
Oh
Those
my god,
people
yeah.
put themselves out there and they enjoy it on a like the amount of the 2 bars, talking about going between 2 bars, and the amount of cosplayers just having a fucking blast, man, having the time of their life, don't care, they're gonna have fun. It was Saturday night, me and Leg, it's probably like 1 o'clock. We're getting ready to end the night, and we stop at the Marriott for, like, 2 or 3 more drinks, and the Marriott bar has got, it's basically everybody's out of it, and a group of 10 Barbies show up. They must have all been like mid-age, but they didn't give a fuck. They were all dressed up as Barbies. They all talk like Barbie. Anytime they talked to a guy in the bar, they would every single one of them would say, "Hi, Ken." They were in just have a fun mode. Each one of them, grab double fisting drinks, enjoying themselves, hanging out together. You know, they were they didn't care. They were having fun. And again, that's the con thing. It energizes you. If it's a good con, everybody's having fun. It kicked my ass and make me realize I'm getting older and I have more aches and pains, but it energized me in the fact of that community and that tribe and how much fun we can have under different tent poles, right? They're Barbie fans, but
Yeah.
they know they can go to a comic convention and have a great fucking time, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Find your tribe, this is what makes comics great, and it's what makes content great too, because you get to like have all these conversations.
Amen.
I want to before I totally wrap up and let you go, I do, I'd be remiss if I didn't get into it a little bit, especially because the last times, you got your comic drama segment that you do on Saturdays, but I feel like there's been some drama, but it feels like where 2024 was the year of drama, 2025, well, I mean, I guess the Stanley doc is drama in some ways, and
Yeah.
Diamond is drama in other ways, but
Uh-huh.
not what we're really talking about, right? Like
Yeah.
2025 has been different, right? And do you think that that's just because there's just not it's like you said with the comic sales and the comic interest, there's just not the same level of attention there. So therefore, there's just not going to be as much interpersonal friction for that same reason. Is that your sense?
Uh, yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think the drama, especially the inner community drama was so heavy last year. Um, but all it needs is a spark, man. It just
Yeah,
needs a
that's true.
spark.
It will
It'll
always
it'll
come.
yeah, it'll die down a little bit. A spark's gonna happen. Somebody's gonna, you know, think it's time to throw a dagger or two somewhere, and it'll pop right up. But um, I think that there is a little bit of something in this to want to try and treat things a little bit more positive this year. I think that we kind of feel like maybe everything that's going on outside of the world of comics and in just real life in general, like it's necessary. We're kind of, further out from the pandemic. There's been this change in politics, and I'm not saying I'm political either way, but just when a change in politics happens, it causes a
Yeah,
change in a lot of thinking and things. And so I don't know if that's what's causing it, but there is something to be a little bit more positive about, I think, and that's important. But it just needs a spark, man, and that's it. I'm telling you, there's going to be somebody, whether it's somebody in an industry popping off or somebody in the community that says the wrong thing. It'll pop off again, and there will be another 2 to 3 weeks talking about something. It's always hiding
yeah.
in the shadows.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
I you know
Unless of course it ends up being you, when you end up in the crosshairs,
Yes,
you better not be too big of a fan of the
yes,
drama unless you're willing to sort of take it, so,
yes, yeah, it's
but
all how
I'm
you
sure that yeah, I'm sure that I'll mess up. I think, obviously the more you talk on camera, the more you're involved in the community, just every day is like another day that increases your chances to find yourself wrapped up in some
yes,
version of drama. So,
yeah. Well,
we'll have to see
here
what
here
happens.
here's the interesting thing. This year, I am going to try and be a little bit more proactive on, monetizing the channel in a way that I've never done before. I told myself 3 years, at the 3 year mark in the channel, it's time to get the channel to start paying for itself, right? And so I'm sure that I'll take some heat because of it. Because for some reason I think that is something. Now you're getting involved in variants. So now you're getting involved in asking for super chats. Now you're getting involved for this. You know what I mean? Oh, uh, perfect example. eBay live sales, right? Big Leg
Yeah.
was doing eBay live sales for the first time from a con, both nights. And he was selling some of the things he got at the con. And somebody in the thing said, "Oh, look at you selling a book for $25 more than it costs." And Big Leg's like, "You pay the ticket to come to the con. You go stand in line to get the book. You do all the legwork to get it signed and make sure it doesn't get smeared and all this stuff. And then you sell it for the price that you want." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so again, it's a perfect example of when money gets involved in this. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. But on the positive side of that, I'm going to be hopefully doing cool stuff. Shout out to Mark Spears and what he did with Big Clutch this at WonderCon this weekend with the Zartan book. That was fucking amazing. And that came from uh me and Clutch, or me and Mark, uh talking about nostalgia and GI Joe, and Mark going, "Hey man, I would love at some point to do a Zartan book. He was my favorite GI Joe. Oh, he was your favorite GI Joe, dude? No shit, that was my favorite GI Joe. Hey, Clutch, let's get Mark to do a fucking Zartan book. And Clutch goes, hell yeah. Boom, Zartan book, Wondercon, it sells out. You know, Mark's got a Huntsville con that he's bringing his Zartan books to. You know what I mean? That's the type of stuff that makes me happy for 2025.
Yeah.
Again, it's energized me. Shout out to Big Clutch, man. That guy is a freaking an absolute. I call him a unicorn. He is nice to everybody, respectful to everybody. Everybody knows him. You go out with him at a you know, a con, and so many people walk up to him, give him big hugs. Like, again, back to what we were talking about earlier. You know, my circle is getting to the point smaller where with people that are like-minded, and Clutch is a good dude. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm excited for
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah, can I stay with that for a little second longer? The whole like making money and monetization and all that stuff. And it's funny how it's like I understand like where the allergy from a viewer would come from in those places. And I do think that there are people who approach monetization in social media in kind of what would you call it, like a scummy sort of way. So I understand like the criticisms there, but like I think like in relating it to drama, I think so much of the drama and that side of it comes from like, and I'll probably get flack for this, people having bad relationships with the content
Yes.
that they consume.
Yes.
And let me put it like this. Let's take it outside of comic books for a second. But if I'm like on a YouTube channel that's talking about, I don't know, fitness, and the guy's like, hey, here's like 5 bicep curls you can do to increase your arms. Oh, and by the way, here's my protein powder if you'd like to buy it, whatever. It's like I don't I don't view that as like a fault from him because it's like I'm just watching his videos, and if I can gain advice from him of how to increase my arm size with his 5 workouts, then I actually don't mind like throwing him some money to buy his protein powder or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it's just to
Yeah.
me, it's just like this is just like an exchange of value in some way.
Mhm.
Now it's messed up if he's like grifting, if his like workouts don't actually work, like that totally makes
It's
sense to
just
me. But
baby powder in there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But like if it's like back in the comic book side, like I don't know, man. Like if people are selling stuff or they're making comics and they're trying to whatever promote their whatnot, like as long as whatever they're giving you via entertainment or shows or streams or whatever is of value to you, I don't think there's anything wrong with them kind of pushing a
Yeah.
product. So
I
I'm
agree.
always like very I try to be uh I try not to overly criticize people too much. And I think
Yes.
a lot of the drama comes from those places, or at least it used to, and maybe not so much anymore. I think people have kind of understood like what this world is a little bit better.
Well, and then the people that are doing the fuckery and that are grifting and are doing the bullshit, then there's always drama alert.
Yeah, yeah. And those people will have the pitchforks raised at them for sure.
Yeah.
All right, last couple things really quick. I'm curious, like we talked a little bit kind of about a bad idea indie stuff. We got the big two, I think is obviously kind of the most important what do you call them? The pace cars of like the industry
Mhm.
as far as like stories and stuff like that. What's just kind of your thoughts right now on current comics? We have Hush 2 out right now. We got Mary Jane's going to be Venom. We're going to bring Gwen Stacy back.
So down.
Like I mean, we got
Disconnect.
some good, some bad. Like what's the current comics to you these days?
Again, they're so disconnected. It's the exact opposite of what we want. Anybody who said anybody in the boardroom or the design or the idea room, the brainstorming room that said, "What about Mary Jane as Venom?" Bro, you're 10 years too late, man. You're
Yeah.
10 years too late. It's way out of our mindset. We do not want that. I don't know anybody that wants that. Nobody wants that I've talked to. Um, the bringing back of Gwen Stacy to be uh, uh, Gwenpool was another one of the worst ideas ever. How did they not know that the OG Gwenpool has such a major fan base and that people love that character so much that all they needed to do was write her instead of bringing back Gwen Stacy and making her kill her and come back? I don't know. I'm not even reading the story right now because I'm so like disconnected from it that I don't want any part of it. It was so, I'm complaining about them being disconnected, but now it's forcing me to disconnect from it, because it's so bad. It's so not what it's the exact opposite of what people wanted. The Hush stuff, I was very interested. And then I got to be honest, I saw the lackluster art. It felt like it wasn't Jim. It didn't feel like Jim Lee art to me. It didn't feel like Hush art to me. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's something's off with the colorist. I don't know what it is, but it just until the story is a little bit more out there and stuff, I'll reserve judgment. But something felt a little bit off about it. I was really excited, and I thought it was cool that they were going to keep it in the Batman series like the OG. I thought that was very cool. And then I found out that they're gonna do that and make a new series, a new standalone, which is again defeats the purpose, you know.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Well, you know why? It's because Matt Fraction's gonna have his Batman come out later in the year, so they like. I think there was something where it's like that we can't do a new Batman 1. It's gonna have to be like Batman Hush 2 issue 4 that has its own thing, so that it doesn't confuse with the one. And just it just goes to show you, like, I mean, we have like layers on layers on layers of built confusion and continuity and stuff. And
Yeah, they do
it's
not.
just
They do not know what the consumer wants. They're disconnected. It's. I need to make a shirt that just says "disconnect comics disconnected" or some bullshit like that because it's bad. It's really bad, especially with
yeah,
DC and Marvel.
it's tough, man. It's like I just think that a lot of times they're just thinking of like what headline is going to get the most attention, you know. Mary Jane is Venom, right? Like there you go. I'm going to see a bleeding cool article like with that headline, and they're just trying to cut through the noise and maybe get a quick pop, quick sale on it. Um, but and yeah, maybe it works. You know, maybe obviously they do what they think works. So
Yeah.
there's a reason why they're greenlighting it, but it's unfortunate because it just it's I don't know anyone who is like particularly excited about that version of that story, the Gwen Stacy stuff or whatever. It just seems like you almost wish that they could just take a pause and
Yes.
let's really think about like what would be good, or what would be a new ways for them to sort of penetrate into like the comic collecting culture, and so that more people could read stories. I don't know. I feel like an entirely different business model is needed for comic books, like in the way when like Napster came into like music, like maybe comic books should just be free to like read online, and everyone
Yeah.
should just be able to read for free online, and then they'll buy it. If you like it, you'll probably buy it. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb idea, but that's why I'm not, the head of sales at Marvel. But I don't know. They
Well,
need something. They need something to change.
you're not. You're right. You're right. You're not the head of whatever at Marvel, but Jim Lee is the head at DC, and
That's true.
Jim Lee, uh, is okay if he's the head at DC. Then is he okay with paying artists and creators lackluster money for something that he left Marvel for? Like
Oh my God, yeah.
like
Isn't
open
that
up.
the ultimate irony, with
Yes.
Dustin Wynn's comments, and it's like Jim Lee is the president there. And it's funny, it's like I don't think anyone really connects the dots to that,
No.
right?
No.
Like, oh, DC bad, but Jim Lee is not DC
Yeah.
somehow, you know?
Yeah, Jim Lee is very reserved, and people like him, and he's likable, right? Uh,
Yeah.
that's the thing is that they, for the longest time, you bring up Jim Lee at DC, and people are like, is he just like a figurehead over there, or is he actually running the place? And that's a great question. I would think that he has some major input over there. I'd hope so, but who knows?
Yeah.
Again, they're so disconnected that I would hope that he's not, okay with a lot of the stuff that's happening, you know, that causes people like Dustin Nguyen to say, "Fuck it, I don't care about if I never work from them again. I'm angry enough." I mean, think about that. That's a big deal for him
Oh yeah.
to be so mad that he's okay with never working for them again to put up an Instagram post,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Willing to say, willing to put that out there. And, you know, like, and it does make you sort of wonder, like, isn't it part of Jim Lee's job to respond to that? Like, in a way,
Yes,
like
yes.
maybe
Even
he
though
should
he's
say
not at
something about it.
Marvel, yeah, he should say something about it, yes.
Yeah,
Because a lot
maybe
of
he should.
creators
I don't know.
did. I mean, Rob Liefeld was one of the first people to respond to that. He said, "Hey, man, you can come do a cover for me." And
Yeah,
how funny is it that, we were kind of joking and giving Liefeld a little crap for him popping off, and he's sitting right now, he's looking like the one that was, the oracle. He's the oracle right now.
yeah,
Again, there's gonna be I'm gonna make another shirt, that says Rob Liefeld is right. You know what I mean? Because he is right. He'll bring receipts, and if he doesn't have receipts, you watch in 3 weeks, it's gonna what he's saying is everybody's gonna feel the same way,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. And I think it's interesting too. Everyone has rose-colored glasses towards Jim Lee. I myself have that as well.
Yes.
Obviously, he's a legend, and obviously, we grew up on his work. But I'm sure that there are working artists today that would love to be on Batman, you know, like doing Hush 2. What an opportunity for them would it be
Yeah,
to be doing, the DC's biggest title. And so it's just interesting. Like, at the same time, when you have Dustin complaining about this whole thing, Jim Lee is also the president, and then he's also appointed himself the best artist job you can get at DC, which is doing Batman. So
yeah.
it's funny how like those optics, like there's no backlash there, or maybe there is backlash amongst artists, but they're never going to say it, right? Because nobody wants to, you know, bite the
Rock the
hand
boat.
that feeds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Especially right now, man. Um,
Yeah.
it's rough. It's
But
very
we'll have to see. I mean, maybe Jim Lee will end up on a drama alert one day, or maybe Jim Lee will be on the industry show and he can explain himself. I mean, he probably should be on the industry show or come on this show
Oh,
or talk
man.
about it. We'll have to see
Tell
if
you
he
what.
he does. But
Yeah.
Brian, man, thanks so much again for hopping on the channel. I'm going to let you go now. Let's leave the people in case they're still watching and they don't know where to find you and the Beyond Wednesday channel. Maybe you can let them know what you got coming up and where they can keep in touch with your work.
Yeah, Beyond Wednesdays on YouTube, very easy to find. Just search Beyond Wednesdays, you'll find us. We do live shows every, Saturday, every Tuesday, and every Wednesday. Every show is a bit different. Tuesdays is the industry show. Wednesday is more geared toward the collectors and of all types of pop culture, but very comic centric. And then Saturday's just mayhem, man. It's you never know what's going to happen. We got the drama alert over there. It's a little bit later for a reason, and it can get pretty hectic over there. So, and then every Friday you can find me over at the House of Stein YouTube channel, counting down the hot 10 comics on the secondary market. Written by Ben Stein, who's been writing the hot 10 list for 10 years now. Kind of if anybody's a wizard, and the new wizard, it's the House of Stein and what Ben Stein's been doing for a while. So go check us out every Friday over there. And then of course you'll see me here with Swag every once in a while and shooting the shit. So
Yeah.
that's find
Well,
me.
definitely enjoyed it. Brian, thanks again, man. I appreciate you. It's always fun hanging out, having conversations. Always good kicking it with you at shows at WonderCon. And I'm definitely looking forward to San Diego this year.